I mean, that's exactly what Mary said as the news sunk in. It's amazing that he loves me at all. I'm just a servant girl, not anyone of high position or regard. Now, sure, I'm engaged to a distant descendant of King David. That's distant like with 25 distance, like my great, et cetera, times 25. Grandfather. But Joseph just works with his hands all day. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but he's nothing to write home about, If there were any benefit to being the descendant of a king, I could understand. Speaking of descendants of a king, that's not a benefit, by the way. I mean, in those days, and sometimes in our day too, when a king was deposed, one of the first things the opposition would do is kill all of their descendants. Because anybody that might have a claim to the throne was a threat. I mean, honestly, if I were Joseph, I would probably stay pretty mum about my great times 25 grandfather. I mean, I'm related to Arnold Palmer. Most of you might know that, know him as the inventor of the drink that is half tea and half lemonade. Woo. But he was, which is delicious, I might add. But he was a fantastic golfer. I'm here to tell you golf is not a genetic trait. So I don't brag about that much. Now, I will tell you, it did come in handy once. Came in handy one time. My wife and I were on our honeymoon, and we decided to go golfing. We were in the Smoky Mountains, and we went golfing in the Smoky Mountains at an Arnold Palmer designed course. And this was one of those kind of fancy places where they would put your name on a placard on the front of your golf cart. Well, as we got around to like the 12th or 13th, it was the 7th hole, we got around to about the 7th hole, and it was a par 3, and we had to wait for the party in front of us. Well, we were waiting on the side, and these guys behind us hit into us. That means that they were being impatient, and they were trying to kind of encourage us forward. So we couldn't do anything because we were kind of sandwiched in, so we got up to the tee box, and we hit off, and they didn't even wait until we got off of the green to start hitting their shots. If you're a golfer, you understand this. This is a no-no, big time. Well, we got to the 8th green, and the marshal pulled up, the course police, and said, "Is everything all right?" And I said, "Well, everything's been fine except for these guys behind us are hitting into us." And he looked at the name on my golf cart, and it said Palmer. And I said, "My uncle would not be happy about this." And the marshal turned around and said, "Oh, yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Palmer, sir, yes." And he immediately took off behind them and told them, "Do you know who's playing in front of you?" The marshal didn't know. But I just let him assume, And when we got to the turn at 9, these guys came up to us and offered to buy us a round of drinks and apologized to us. So one time it came in handy, not on the golf course necessarily, but adjacent to the golf course. So that's a whole totally off the book's story. You can ask me about it later. But you see, in our moments of honesty, in our moments of clarity, we can ask ourselves some of the same questions. We can say, "I'm not anybody special. Who am I that you would pay any attention to me, Lord?" And we're not alone in those questions. It's the same wonder that came from Moses when he said, "Who am I to go before Pharaoh?" It's the same wonder that came from David when he said, "Who am I that you have made me king, a lowly shepherd?" Even Job, in the depths of his grief and pain, exclaimed the same thing. He said, "Who am I that I should try to answer or reason with God?" So it's no wonder at all that Mary would ask the same thing. Who am I but a lowly servant girl? It's a wonder of his love for me.